The Seattle Mariners offense continues to be weaker than Joe Lacey in the middle school gym. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles Angels of Disneyland series, where the Mariners scored a total of 3 runs. There were some injuries in this series. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to go into, does that mean that someone needs to get fired? Because there are a lot of guys to blame for what's going on right now. We already saw Ty France lose his job. Is there more to come when we look at the rest of this season? Then we're going to go into a rumor from Jon Heyman that the Mariners have been very aggressive on trying to acquire Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And we're going to wrap it all up by talking about the Chicago White Sox series that starts on Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 107 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the AJ episode of the podcast. And I am here with Noodle Arms himself. Joe, how are you?
I didn't expect to catch a stray. Not Colton would never, ever say anything so just rude. It's just plain rude. And I don't know where this is coming from. Like, you think you're all high and mighty, whatever. Listen, I understand that maybe you're projecting your sadness, your disappointment with the Mariners baseball team, and you're projecting that onto me, and that's okay. I can be the sponge for you if you need me to be. Colton, this series is absolutely atrocious, and I'm sorry that the Mariners did not pull through on your birthday, the day that we're recording this, no less. So I just want to say, even though you were mean to me, happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah, no, it was worst birthday present ever. So, not you saying happy birthday.
Yeah, the Mariners losing.
Being bad, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, like, if you were to give me, like, an odds sheet, what birthday present would be the least desirable? Odds on bet there is the Mariners losing on your birthday while you're in attendance. And that bet probably doesn't exist in real life, but other ones do with BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your sports betting needs this season. From baseball, golf, soccer, and even all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing, every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played, BetOnline has you covered. And when the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of the over 150 slots games to play. Head to the website today to get in on the action and use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here. It was more of the same, I feel like, as the Angels arrived into Seattle on Monday, Colton. A final of 3-1 would be the scoreline for the first game here. Mariners got off to a hot start. It could have been better, but the first inning, they scratch across a run. They hold the Angels scoreless for 7 innings. Bryce Miller, at home, Bryce Miller, 7 innings, 3 hits, 5 Ks, was shoving in this game. They got Tyler Anderson out before the 6th. I mean, he goes 5 2/3. It's close enough. Doesn't get a quality start. What does this offense need to do? More than 1 run a game. Like, it's unbelievable what this, how this series went, given your level of competition you're facing across from you. Sure, Tyler Anderson was an all-star. I don't care. Like, you need to get more than 1 run across the board against him, against the Angels. The Angels bullpen coming out of their previous series, which I think was against the Athletics. Sure, the Athletics are swinging the bats like crazy right now. Their bullpen ERA was above like a 6.8. I mean, I think it was actually 6.9. Nice. And the Mariners legitimately couldn't do a single, they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Hit water if they fell out of a boat type situation in this series. They lose this game 3-1 because the offense didn't do anything after the first inning. And, I mean, Ryan Stanek has, after his stretch of scoreless outings, turned into a pumpkin. Just has not been the same. Do I have hope that he will be any semblance of like what we saw for a stretch of 11, 12 outings in a row? Doesn't look like it. I have zero faith in everybody except for the starting pitchers at this point, and Andres Munoz. And even Munoz in this one, I mean, he had the blown save, couldn't stop the bleeding that Stanek allowed to start, but it's just an ugly game.
Yeah, this game started for the Mariners with JP Crawford getting hit by a pitch, which in turn ended up being a fractured pinky for JP. He's going to be out, what was it, 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, that's like the rough timetable.
Yeah, so all of that news was then followed up by Julio was going on the IL as well the next day. It was some weird stuff happening the next day. But yeah, in game one of this series, I mean, it's going to be the same story for this entire series, basically. But you lost JP, the guy that was in there to cover for Ty France, who had just been designated for assignment, which was Dylan Moore, then had to move over to shortstop. I Bleav he struck out 3 times in this game.
I think no. I think he was 0 for 4 with 4 Ks.
No, that I Bleav Rayleigh was over 4 with 4 Ks.
Oh, was he?
The guy that came in to play first base.
Fantastic.
Or maybe Rayleigh struck out 3 times, Moore struck out 4. Well, it doesn't matter.
They were
the
terrible.
fact of the matter is that both of them combined to be absolute trash. The only people with hits in this game, Jonathan Clase had a hit, Cal Raleigh had a hit, and Victor Robles had 2. He's the only competent hitter in this lineup right now, other than like Jason Vossler, all of a sudden. But that brings us into game 2, Joe, where prior to the game, there were some moves made, including bringing up Cade Marlowe and Jason Vossler, which I think actually Vossler had been added to the lineup the day or the team the night before, but nonetheless, Cade Marlowe came up, Tyler Locklear came up, Joe, and then Jonathan Clase left and then came back. It was this whole thing.
It was just a weird amalgamation of roster moves. The Mariners PR, like Twitter account, whatever, like that little like snippet of their tweet, put it in the Louvre, because that's like a signifying moment for how the last I'd say like month and a half has gone for the Seattle Mariner Baseball Club. You've got Gilbert on the mound in game 2. You're thinking, great, we'll be fine. And in the 5th inning, the Angels said, I like the number 5 in the 5th inning. Let's score 5. All right, let's drop 5 on their heads. And of course, it's only 1 earned run to Logan in this situation. He goes 6 2/3, 4 hits, 5 runs, only 1 earned, 1 walk, 8 Ks. He was pitching great. The Mariners just had 2 errors, 2 defensive miscues. I don't think the second error happened until later, where like it was that the pop fly where Cal and Locklear let it drop in between them, or is that not counting as the error?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I can't remember right now what the 2 errors were. All I know is I remember being very upset about it.
It was a bunt that Neto put down, and then Logan Gilbert like tried sliding, making the play, and then
right.
Like it's just a bunch of shenanigans. Okay, the Angels scored 5. Mariners offense, they score 1 run in this game. It's another situation where the offense is just non-existent. The lineup is just in shambles. You've got Rojas leading off, has not been the same batter since May?
Like May, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a long free fall from him hitting like 320. He's batting 238. That's probably lower. That's his stats after this game. You got Robles batting 2. It's just bad, top to bottom for the Mariners offense. You need to go do something, because you're scoring 1 run against the Angels. You're letting Jose Soriano, fine pitcher, go 7 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned, 3 walks, 5 K. Like, it's just it's never good enough with this team right now. And they're so unbelievably lucky that the Astros lost the first 2 games to the Athletics as well. They were on par, on pace with us in this series up until the final game. But Colton, is there anything you want to touch on in game 2?
Not really. I mean, the Mariners had 3 hits.
All Locklear, the new guys.
Vossler, Marlowe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The guys that were just brought up. So, I mean, what do you say? Like, clearly the guys who have been here all season have nothing. There's nothing in the tank for these guys right now. And it's pitiful. It truly is. I mean, we again look through this lineup. Like you said, Josh Rojas leading off. All right, Victor Robles batting 2. Jorge Polanco, and his now over 200 batting average after today, batting in the 4-hole. Like, it's just an ugly, ugly bunch of guys right now. I'm sure like they're attractive, but their numbers aren't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us into game 3, Joe, which I had the great misfortune of being at, with Luis Castillo on the bump versus Griffin Canning. Canning went 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned, 3 walks with 6 strikeouts. The Mariners were able to score 1 measly run again. This one, a Mitch Haniger home run, which was crushed, by the way.
Yeah.
To right center field in the 2nd inning. Really good to see for Mitch. But overall, the Mariners come up with just 6 hits. They did have a pretty big moment there with the bases loaded and no outs. Tyler Locklear up at the plate. They ended up scoring 0 runs. in that moment. And so I don't know. I mean, what do you say? You know what I mean? Like, what can you possibly say about this team right now? The hits in this game, Robles had one, Cal had one, Polanco hit a double, Mitch Haniger with the home run, Vossler had a hit. Vossler hit the ball hard like 3 or 4 times. And then Luke Rayleigh had a hit in this one as well. Luis Castillo, 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. The earned runs coming in against Gregory Santos, unfortunately, which I don't know. I don't blame. Like, I don't think it was necessarily all his fault. He does get charged with 2 earned runs in just 2/3 of an inning. But overall, it all comes back to the offense, Joe.
Yeah, the situation where Locklear's got the bases juiced. He smoked the ball down the third baseline. Just Rengifo made a good play on it. Like, I don't want to say you have to tip your cap in that situation because, like, we're all just pissed off. But the only thing that you can maybe say to Locklear there is try and not hit it at a body. But he even then, he hit it super hard. It's just a good play at the end of the day.
It took Rengifo right to the bag. Like,
That
what are
too.
you supposed to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if it's to his glove side, if it's towards the 6 hole, maybe you score a run there. But of course, that's just not how it turned out. And it's just unfortunate. Santos, it's a weird situation. Needs to get pulled off the mound with an injury. Weird. I mean, we haven't seen any. I don't think they've come out with anything about it yet.
They said it was his knee. He felt a sharp pain in his knee.
Okay. Okay. And that's probably related to him, like, covering, like, the PFP, fielding the ball, pitching it to Locklear. In that inning, there's a little, like, chopper, like, kind of in that no man's land area between first, the mound, and second. He goes and makes the play. It was a fine play. It's just then after that, he balks because of the discomfort. Runner moves to second. He gets pulled out of the game. Thornton then gives up the... It's just a recipe for disaster, ultimately, how the tail end of this game went. Because, yeah, I mean, Canning, terrible pitcher. You only score 1 earned off of him, but you got him out of there, like, through only 5 innings. You had a chance to score runs against the Angels bullpen, and you just didn't do it. And is it credit to, like, not credit, but where the blame falls? Is it the injuries leading to guys like Robles having to play center field instead of a corner, and then, obviously not having Julio? Is it J.P. Crawford's hand injury? Is it the roster turnover of Ty? You're bringing up Locklear and like, it doesn't matter. You've got to point fingers at some point, and it's got to be down to the guys executing, which they're not on the field. But that's not how the blame game fully works in professional sports. There's always going to be faces and different guys blamed, but it's just ugly. You're only 2 games over 500. You were once like 12 or 13. It's just hideous, man. And it's such a painful sight to see. You mentioned Haniger. He's hitting way better against righties this year than he is lefties. Like, lefties, he's
like a 12 WRC plus.
Basically useless. If he's getting a random spot start against righties twice a week, and that's what you get at him, is like he pops a homer, that's great. That's kind of like what his role should be, is he's a pinch hitter at some points, and then he's a random spot start, and you hope to get a little bit of lightning out of that bat every once in a while. But it's ultimately about trying to bring the best out of the group of guys that you are able to roll out there. And that simply just is not happening for this team right now.
And it starts and begins with the leaders of this team. Obviously, Ty France is gone now. In my opinion, he was one of the leaders of the team. JP just got injured. He was the captain. You had Julio just got injured. Obviously, your superstar player. I think that the lack of voices in that clubhouse, and yes, that does go to Scott Service as well. Absolutely. I have always been in the camp that coaches are not as important as everybody thinks they are, in terms of, like, they are a scapegoat. The problem is the players. The problem is not the coaches. With that being said, however, something has to change, and the easiest person to blame, the easiest person to get rid of, is the manager or is the hitting coach, what have you. It would be really late in the season, and I don't think they'll do it right now, Joe. But I think that Scott Service is gone. I think that it feels to me like he's lost the clubhouse. And he has had plenty of times in the past where it's felt like that before, and he's been able to rally these guys together. but it has now been an extended period of time where that just has not happened. And I think because of that, it's pretty clear whether or not the guys have just moved on from him, like, they grow up past their managers, and we've seen it plenty of times before, or maybe he just doesn't have the fire he had before. Who knows, right? Who knows? He has made so many mistakes this year, but he's also been handed a heaping pile of dog poop of a roster. It's like, what's he supposed to do? And so that the blame does not fall solely on Scott Service. I think the easiest thing and the thing that makes the most sense to do right now is fire Jarrett DeHart. And I think that that's the right move? No, I don't. But I think that it would be the easiest scapegoat right now for the team to go out there and say, oh, well, we fired the hitting coach, therefore, we did something. It'll at least keep the fire out from underneath Scott or the rest of the crew for a little bit longer. I think the firing of Scott's more an off-season move, honestly. His contract's up the end of the year anyway. I look to a lot of the guys on this team right now. Obviously, Mitch being the guy that I think is probably the next one to go if the Mariners do go out there and make a move. But Joe, it's time for these guys to. There has to be change. There has to be change. We saw it start with Ty France. More of it needs to happen.
Yeah, you mentioned like the loss of a lot of clubhouse guys. The voices in there are, I'd say, both the Mitches, who are severely harming your team more than helping in most cases. Not to discredit them as human, like whatever. They're not performing, and who in their right mind is going to listen to a veteran that's not performing? Like, it's just not how it works. Especially when you've got some of your other guys in that clubhouse that are the guys that maybe are newer that are performing. Like, not to say that Robles is a guy that wouldn't listen to the established leaders in the clubhouse, but why would he at this point? He's been a guy that was just brought in because of the Nationals didn't want him, and he's been the best player since coming over. Why would he ever listen? If anything, they should listen to him, but like that's just not how it's going to work. You know me, I've been like a guy that will not necessarily deflect blame, but try and reallocate it in terms of discussion of like, it's not one thing. But unfortunately, that's how blame works. That's how the blame game works as far as you look at the full team success. It's not there. Has Scott lost the clubhouse? And is that what made Scott so good at like before in terms of taking a roster that was unfinished and turning it into a 90-win, 88-win team? Yes. That's kind of how it worked before. He definitely brought out better forms of players in the past. That's not happening right now for whatever reason. If it's the players not being bought into maybe his coaching philosophy, if it's no clue. There's not a real pulse on it because how would we know? Like, unless a player in the clubhouse can be like, yeah, Scott's not doing his job. He's not motivating us. He's not telling us to do this. Or Scott in a post-game presser, he's like, yeah, I kind of just sit there with my thumb up my... Like, no, that's never going to happen. That's just not how that works, right? And so for us to sit here and speculate, like, oh, what's the best move? There is no best move. It will be different no matter what. And it's not just going to take one thing. Do I think Scott has I feel like it's a coin flip. I feel like it's a coin flip of whether or not Scott is the head coach of this team, like post All-Star break. I really think it's a coin flip. I know it's super late. I've said that, like, I personally don't think it should happen until the offseason. I think they should just, like, maybe, like, I don't say, like, let it ride out and, like, you hope that the offense turns it around in some way or if they make some sort of trade, whatever. I just feel like they've got to do something that will cause, like a seismic effort, if that makes sense. Some sort of ripple has to start. And if the ripping is the bandage of Scott Service off this team, so be it. That is what it is. Like, I don't fully care at this point of who gets the axe, so long as the team is better on the other side of it. I don't really care anymore. Mm-hmm. If it's Jarrett DeHart, great. We fired 2 hitting coaches in a singular season because the offense has been tremendously horrible all year long. You are wasting the best pitching staff in baseball, rotation at least, staff maybe not fully because the bullpen's sometimes hit or miss, but the pitching rotation has been historic and you're wasting it. And whose job is it to get the best out of the team and put the best team on the field to win? Well, it's not Scott to put together the team, but he has to put out the best players that he's given. So it starts off with John Stanton not giving them money. Then Jerry DiPoto maybe not being able to identify major league bats that will play somehow in T-Mobile. And then it's Scott using them, and then it's the players executing on the field. There's no right answer, but as you said, change needs to happen. If it's more roster turnover like Mitch Haniger gone, great. If it's Jarrett DeHart, great. If it's, I don't care. Something needs to happen, though.
And something might happen. We have the trade deadline coming up here in a little less than a week now. I would really love for it to happen today that you're hearing this on Thursday. Day off, baby. Let's go make a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get weird. All right. But according to Jon Heyman, my favorite punching bag, the Mariners have been very aggressive in trying to acquire Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a first baseman from the Toronto Blue Jays, who would definitely change, I think, the tone of this team. And if you want my opinion, if there's one thing that I think will really change the attitude and the effort level from this team right now, it's just the front office showing that they Bleav in this stupid team. Because in years past, the front office hasn't. They've gone out there, they traded Graveman, they traded Seawald, etc. They said, oh, sorry, we don't Bleav in you. Okay, well, now here we are coming up on the trade deadline, and all of a sudden you're only a few games over 500, but this team is still one game out of first place. They're in a free fall right now. And I know, and everybody knows, it's been talked about a million times now, the trade market just hasn't opened yet. Frankly, that it has not begun. GMs around all of baseball have said it. This is the latest thing we've gone into a season where nothing major has happened yet in terms of trades. Could set up for a very interesting trade deadline day, Joe, which we're going to be live for all day long, baby.
That'd be exciting.
That's going to be fun. I hope everything waits till that day, because that's just going to be the most wild trade deadline stream ever.
It'll be way better than last year since nothing really happened.
Yeah, nothing for the Mariners specifically. Hey,
yeah.
Oh, you leave Edward Bizardo's name out your mouth. Thank you. Anyway, the Mariners have been very aggressive on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That move, if that happens, I think that is a very clear sign from the front office that we Bleav in this team. So go out there. We think you guys have the talent to make it work. Going and getting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the move, I think, that does that for this team. It's going to cost a lot. And obviously hasn't happened. And the Blue Jays have said they don't plan on moving Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But I've mentioned this, I'm pretty sure you have too. There is a price. There's a price for everybody. The Blue Jays have him for another year and a half. So the rest of this year and then all of next year. They want to run it back with him next year. But if you give them a prospect package that they cannot refuse, like if they refuse it, they're the stupidest team in history, especially when they run it back next year and it doesn't work again. And then they get less of a prospect package because they waited. If you give them a package they cannot refuse, you end up with Vladdy. And at this point, that's what I think needs to happen. This team is more than one bat away. Now that acquisition can come as players getting back to their career norms. But there still needs to be additions from outside of this team as well in a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If you add a player of his caliber and that energizes the team and they all start actually playing like they know, like they've swung a freaking baseball bat before, then that is a addition that you cannot put into words how important it has been. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to the Mariners, Joe, how do we feel?
I mean, it's obviously a huge move. It would be one that could be a seismic level ripple that the team needs to maybe just get energized again. This, you're saying the team is in free fall? This is like the pulling of the string of the parachute. It could be. Is it a guarantee? No. And you're saying that like the Blue Jays don't want to move him? Heyman also said during the live stream that the Mariners were pretty aggressive, but it hasn't happened. So he thinks Vlad is staying. How much more aggressive can the Mariners get? It starts, I think, I don't know. We obviously have no idea as far as like rumors about what packages were offered. If I'm the Blue Jays, I'm looking for prospect talent that's relatively close to the bigs, if not in the bigs. It's like, you're going to have to give up Locklear. You're going to have to give up Dom Canzone. Like, you're going to have to give up probably Harry Ford or Cole Young, like something in that range. And then you top it off with high-level prospects that will be 2-3 years away, but enough to entice them to be like, all right, yeah, we'll move our generational Nepo baby first baseman for this prospect package. Do I think that the Mariners will do that? They need to do something. And if it's trading Locklear, Canzone, and 3 top 5s, sure. I don't care. Again, I don't care at this point. I can root for a team that will be tremendously horrible. I can root for a team that will be good, middle of the road, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Go make a move at some point. If you get fleeced, so be it. Roster turnover can happen. You can allocate the farm. You can rebuild it. Whatever. I'm tired of waiting and them sitting on their hands. I don't want them to be stupid and what's reckless. I guess reckless would be the word I would describe it as. But if Dipoto thinks his job's on the line,
he got to lose.
What does he have to lose? And same thing with Ross Atkins in Toronto. His job is also on the line. So it's 2 guys that maybe don't have anything to lose, but also could save their career with that organization should they want to stay there with a trade like this, depending on how it turns out. If, say, this report of how the Mariners were aggressive, Heyman doesn't think Vlad's getting moved, can you then take whatever talks you're in with this team and go find another first baseman in the league or a position of that same caliber as far as power output is considered? Yeah, I'd say Pete Alonso's right there. I'd say Isaac Paredes is right there. I'd say Randy Arozarena could be right there. I'd say Luis Robert Jr. is right there. There are guys that can impact the Mariners, maybe not equally, maybe not laterally like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can, but there's definitely impact out there to be had. I don't care that the trade market hasn't materialized 6 days before the trade deadline. Something's got to give. Yeah, you be the change you want to see. Release the floodgates. Do something.
We're talking to you.
Yeah, you. You guys are going to listen to us. We're sitting here in office chairs in a room with with a webcam. You're listening to us.
Yeah.
It sucks because it feels like there are moves that this team could have made 2 weeks ago where we wouldn't be in this just free fall down to nothing. We're flirting with 500 after you did not have a losing month up until July. You're 6-11 or 6-12 in July. Each of the first months before that, you won 15 games. How does that happen? Your offense is the worst in baseball is how that happens. What can you do to fix it? Maybe go out and acquire guys that make your offense not the worst in all of baseball. It's weird how that can work.
Wow. Huh. Makes you think, doesn't it? No? Oh, okay. No, it wasn't a rhetorical question.
No thoughts inside this brain.
No thoughts, just vibes. Just like the Mariners at the plate. Yeah. I think that you're right. It doesn't have to be Vlad, right? There are other guys out there, and I've said this before. If we get to July 31st, the day after the trade deadline, and Vladdy hasn't been traded, Pete Alonso hasn't been traded, etc., okay. They were probably just never going anywhere. However, if you get to July 31st and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. plays for the Astros, and which I don't know how the hell that could happen, the Astros, and Pete Alonso plays for
the Yankees.
The Yankees, right? That is an absolute failure on the Mariners for not going out there. And I don't care what it takes. You have to overpay. You have to make sure that you have the winning bid on one of those guys, if not 2. In a perfect world, Joe, the Mariners go out there and get Vlad and Robert. In a perfect world. I know.
It would be expensive, but yes, you need that level of acquisition to cement this as okay, we're going for it. Does Vlad guarantee you make the playoffs? I don't think so. I don't think it's a guarantee at that point.
Certainly helps, yeah.
But it helps.
And I think that by adding those 2 guys, it signifies to the team that you have in front of you right now, okay, hey, they believe in us. Let's go make things happen. They need something. They need a spark plug right now. I don't think that spark plug is going to be Jason Vossler or Jonathan Clase or Cade Marlowe. I mean, I have never been more dejected, Joe, than when I was getting ready to go to the Seattle Mariners baseball game on my birthday with the threat of being swept for the first time this year. And I see the bottom of the lineup of Jason Vossler, Tyler Locklear, and Dylan Moore with Josh Rojas leading off. I was sick to my stomach.
Doesn't inspire much confidence.
Yeah, and so it's looking at it moving forward. The Mariners have to go out there and do something sooner rather than later. Listen, yes, the floodgates have not opened on the trade market yet. The Mariners haven't been aggressive enough. Nobody has been. That's why it hasn't happened yet. You can start this. If you have to overpay, so freaking be it. Go out there and trade 4 guys and make it happen. Like, you have the ammunition to go out there and start the trade deadline off now. And with that being said, with JP getting hurt, you probably need a shortstop, right? You can go out there and make an easier trade. Like, Paul DeJong makes sense. He makes a lot of sense. I don't love it. Like Nico Horner makes sense right now. Mm-hmm. We already know the Cubs are selling. Like, all these guys make sense. They're not the big flashy trades. But if I have to watch Dylan Moore play shortstop for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I'm going to gouge my eyes out with a spoon.
Like a dull and rusty spoon, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a couple in your cupboard, you gross little man, you.
Yeah, I do. About as gross as the Chicago White Sox, Colton.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's the cue that you want me to move on.
Yeah, I mean, Paul DeJong plays for the White Sox.
Yeah, Paul DeJong and Luis Robert.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if the Mariners were to maybe try to acquire both of them, it could happen this series.
Yes.
Versus the Chicago White Sox, which begins on Friday. Joe, tell me about it.
Well, you've got Drew Thorpe on the bump, opposite George Kirby. We get, I'd say, the big 3 of the White Sox starters in this series. Right. They all could be on, well, maybe not Thorpe, but Fedde and Crochet in games 2 and 3 could be on hug watch. Maybe we dodge them somehow, some way with the trade market maybe moving forward. But yeah, Friday, the White Sox have to play the Rangers on Thursday, so we'll catch them in a pretty busy part of their schedule. Does that matter? Not really. I mean, they're 27 and 77. This team is, they're 50 games below 500. Are you kidding me? If the Mariners can't score more than 1 run a game against the 27 and 77 White Sox, I'm borrowing your dull and rusty spoon and gouging my eyes. There's no way, shape, form, nothing after an off day that this team should come out and put anything less than 5 runs on the board on Friday. And if they don't, Lord so help me God, it'll be scorched earth if they lose this series. You've come out 1-5 out of the All-Star break. You are 6-12 in the month of July. You're 1 game back of a division lead. And you're playing the 27 and 77 White Sox, a team that is bottom 5 in both WRC Plus and team ERA. Did that stop the Mariners from earlier in the season playing a pretty close 4-game set, although they won 3 out of 4? Did that stop them earlier in the year? No. Something's got to give. If it's you're jumping on Drew Thorpe, who's pitched well outside of his, I think, 1 bad blow-up start in the second start of his career. If it's jumping on a rookie like that, you have to do it. There's no, like, analytical thing for me here other than the fact that you just have to go do it. Like, screw all the numbers, screw your bottom 4 offense to the month of July. I think we're only better than I have it pulled up. We're only better in the month of July than the White Sox, who have been the worst offensive baseball all of July, the Angels, which is ironic, the Guardians. The Mariners are the 4th worst offense in all of baseball in July. You need to make a change. And if that change is completely rearranging the lineup, if it's some sort of turnover, whatever, it can't, this level of incompetence, ineptitude, offensively, if it continues against the White Sox, you have failed this season. You are now like just limp, like a dead duck, a lame duck heading into this series. It's just bad.
I am that duck.
I am that duck.
If the Mariners lose this series to the White Sox, you and I are going to have an uncensored live stream where it will not be monetized and we will be deleting it afterwards. However, an uncensored live stream where we just tear into the Seattle Mariners baseball team. Because if you lose a series to the White Sox, you do not deserve to be talked about in a good light. You don't. And going into game 2, it's going to be Eric Fedde, I'm assuming, and Brian Wu, unless they decide to do something weird with the off day.
Yeah, as it's lined up, Fedde versus Brian Wu. Again, it's
Crochet versus Miller.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we get the best 3 pitchers out of the White Sox organization. But again, they could be traded. Like, that's my saving grace for this series, because Crochet carved last time when we faced him. Fedde, I think they did okay against, but it wasn't anything super inspiring. If they get traded, that completely changes, I think, my scope for this series. But I don't know, man. There's nothing positive to say about this offense. So it's so hard to be like, yeah, they'll be able to scratch a couple runs off of a guy that struck us out 13 times and has an ERA below 3 on the year. And yeah, the guy that came back from Korea completely reinvented his career, and Eric Fedde, who's definitely being talked to being traded to contenders. Yeah, we can scratch some runs off against him. No, we can't. There's nothing that tells me that they can. Like, I am usually very eternally optimistic. I will cope my life away at being like, yeah, the Mariners can do something. Until they show me that they can, at this point, no, they can't. And this will be the series where they drop 10 each game, and I'll be over the moon. We're back. But it's been Jover for the entire month of July.
Yeah, this is a month that normally happens for the Mariners in May, is how bad this has been. And I think that this series specifically could be an incredibly interesting one, just to see, because we're so close to the trade deadline now, what happens with because the White Sox are the clearest seller in terms of assets. They're the clearest seller of some of the best guys in the game. Like Crochet, I'd put it as a top of the line starter. Luis Robert, when he's healthy, top of the line hitter. Like, we could see both of them traded this series. And I think that that's what makes this series so interesting, because we know that it's a bad baseball team, but the Mariners are a bad baseball team currently. They weren't for the first 70-ish games of the season. But these last 30 or so, they've been one of the worst baseball teams in baseball. And I think that going up, it's a battle of the Titans, baby. A battle of just bad. Just a terrible baseball team. You know what, Joe? How has first base looked since Ty France has left? I'll answer it for you.
Bad?
Not good.
I was going to say bad. Like, what? Dylan Moore 0 for 4, 4 Ks in the first game since Ty left. I don't think Locklear's done. He got what?
He's
one hit?
One hit.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 games.
But they're like 1 for like 12 with
probably like
9
7
strikeouts.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just bad. Like, there's no sugarcoating it at this point.
Ty France could have done that.
Very easily could have done that.
The vibes might have still been there. Okay. I'm a Ty France defender. All right. You know how sad I am that he left. I haven't had a chance to talk about it on here yet. I'm on my soapbox. Okay? Because do I want to talk about the games the Mariners have coming up? No. I don't care anymore. Win baseball games or I don't care. The end. And do I want to talk about Drew Thorpe? I don't care. He's going to shove. Do I want to talk about Garrett Crochet versus this offense? He's going to somehow throw 2 perfect games in one game. I don't know. I don't care to talk about this offense right now and the pitchers they're going to face, because we know they're all going to shove. And the Mariners pitching staff's going to go out there and do their thing, more than likely, against one of the worst offenses in baseball. If the Mariners lose a game during this series because the pitching staff, like, Wu goes out there and just gets lit up randomly, okay, I can live with that. I can live with that, because it's so seldom that the starting pitching gets a pass when that happens. The offense doesn't, because it is night in and night out one of the most dog shit offenses in all of baseball. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 107 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Cruxel episode of the podcast. And go Mariners, I guess. I don't know. Go Mariners.